All right, everybody. I'm Cole Burke with Mullet Mafia. I'm here with former second team All Sprint American Navy graduate, current enrolled Navy soldier, Mr. Mike Garnett. Mike, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good, Cole. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for
Yeah,
the
man.
intro too. I didn't realize you looked into my accolades before this.
Oh yeah, man. I got the notes pulled up right here, man. Middle linebacker for the Navy Sprint football team. I mean, come on, team captain in 2021. Got to do my research before I get going.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
And you played sprint football, which a lot of people are unaware of sprint football and what all that consists of. So, can you give a rundown of what sprint football is and if there's any different rules or any changes to the rules from normal, FBS football?
Yeah, for sure. So Collegiate Sprint Football League is what I played in all 4 years, and for decades, that's been the only sprint football league in the country. Recently, so as of 2 years ago, there's now a Midwest Sprint Football League as well. So there's two leagues, Midwest and East Coast. All the same rules, so 11 on 11, full contact, full pads, NCAA rules. The only difference being there's a weight limit for everybody on the roster. So 65-man roster, I think 80-man travel roster. So managers, athletic trainers, the whole shindig. And so, twice a week, if you have a game on Friday, then you got to weigh in on Monday and Wednesday at or below 178 pounds. So it was a lot of fun. It gave an opportunity to guys like me who were a little bit undersized, played in high school, loved the game of football, but just didn't quite have the size or athleticism required to compete at the Division 1 level, FBS level. So nothing but super good things to say about the sprint football culture. It's a group of super hard workers, and it's all guys who didn't have a different avenue to continue playing the game. So the love of the game and the love of your brothers was the only thing that kind of kept us going and gave us the mental fortitude to drop a few pounds in season. But I was fortunate to enjoy some success on the field. Two-time champion with the Navy guys. They just capped off. Shout out to the team this year. Just capped off the three-peat, beat Army in the championship for the third straight year. So a lot of success is being enjoyed by Navy sprint football these days.
Heck yeah, and that you love to hear that, especially beating Army, which is what I'm about to dive into. Obviously, Army Navy gets its own weekend. After all the conference championships are done, after all the big rivalry games are done, they get their own day to play that game, which kind of shows you the magnitude of the rivalry. How does that carry over into sprint football? Is it the same hatred that they have for the team that plays on CBS as it is on the one that plays in sprint football?
Absolutely, man. It's impossible to describe the feeling when you show up on campus, regardless if you play a sport or not. Like every single day, dozens of times a day, you're saying beat Army, and they're doing the same thing up in West Point. They're saying beat Navy every time they square a corner. The hatred, it exists, and beating Army is what you play for. I'm like no kidding, getting chills right now talking about it and remembering those moments of getting to compete against Army because, as you mentioned, the hatred is so real. And the beautiful thing is, we all graduate. All right, we go into our service as commissioned officers, and we're doing our thing. And if I ever run into any of the Army sprint football guys, heck yeah, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to talk to them because we have that shared connection of playing sprint football and serving in the armed forces. But for those 60 minutes, every time we played, I could not stand them. They'll say the same things about us that we say about them. And cool thing is, you have a lot of similar athletes, right? The talent level is super even, and the preparation is super even. So it comes down to who wants it more on any given game day. And everybody that ever plays in the Army Navy series will tell you what their record was against those other guys. I went 4-3. I wish I would have went 7-0, but I went 4-3. I left with the winning record, and that's what matters. Um, it's like every week you have specific dedicated periods to beating Army, regardless of who you're playing that week. You're gonna sprinkle in some Army preparation, and I guarantee they're doing the same thing up there. So it's impossible to describe the joy of beating those guys, and I can't be clear enough. Beating Army is one of the best feelings to exist in the world, in the human experience. Beating Army after a 60-minute football game where you give everything you had and left it all on the field, you can't top it. So being able to feel that 4 times in the course of 4 years was incredible. I'll never forget it. And yeah, nothing but respect to those guys for everything they go through in their cadet life. They do the same things we do as midshipmen, but man, when you're competing, and there's nothing like it. And I think the coolest thing is the way the entire brigade of midshipmen, and I'm sure the Corps of Cadets, rallies behind the athletic teams that are playing that week. Everybody knows as a sprint football player after the Army game, the whole yard knows whether or not you beat Army. And so beating them, you get to walk with a little bit more swagger. You get to hold that on your chest. Like, yeah, we did beat Army. My senior year, we did it twice, which is just awesome. So yeah, the pageantry, the rivalry, the hatred, the love that you develop for the guys you're competing with, coupled with the hatred for the guys you're competing against, you can't beat it anywhere.
And obviously, 4 wins, one more than they had during your time there, which I'm sure is something amazing you can hang your hat on. And you went to Cistercian, obviously, played for Coach Burke, know him very well, good guy. And old T Willie, number 7, played for the
Yeah.
Army sprint football team. Did you ever get a chance to compete against him?
Yeah, we did. So we overlapped for 2 years in our time, him at West Point, me at Navy. So this is funny. When I showed up as a plebe, during plebe summer, which is the 7-week kind of indoctrination period, everybody in the freshman class, they get to choose what sport they're going to go, play. So the recruited athletes, they already have theirs sorted out. And sports period during plebe summer is kind of a time to relax, let loose a little bit during a very serious manner and time in your life. So I had known about sprint football through Thomas. So he went to West Point 2 years before I went to Navy. He went to the sprint football team. So I knew I was going to play sprint football at Navy. That was just, I was fortunate to have that going in. And so we're there over plebe summer, and we're doing these initial kind of tryout practices, getting to know the team, and guys who've never played football before but are interested are coming out. And our defensive coordinator, he's a retired admiral in the Navy, Admiral McNeil. We're walking to the field one day, and it was his first year coaching. So he had watched the film from the previous season, but he had never actually coached against Army or anything like that. And I'm like, hey, like I know one of these guys, and I saw some of the film. They run the same offense that my high school coach had us run. So like I got some insider knowledge. And my buddy Thomas, blah blah, he stops me. He's like, "Are you talking about number 80?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's Thomas Williamson." He goes, "I hate that guy." So Thomas dominated the league for the time he played. He was an all-league receiver. He was a team captain at West Point. And to your point, the lessons that we got from playing Hawk football, and definitely the football IQ and the competitive mentality that your dad, by the way, Coach Burke, instilled in us, that translates to the next level. So for him to get elected captain, myself to get elected captain, I think both of us, if you asked us separately, we'd tell you we attribute a lot of that to the coaching we had at Cistercian. Coach Burke, Coach Bruce, Coach Taylor, Coach Gray. I'm leaving too many out. There's too many to name, but those guys teach you how to compete, and it gives you an advantage when you show up to a service academy, because we were fortunate to have that discipline and that competitive nature ingrained in us from the time we were 14, 15 years old. So Thomas and I, we did get to play against each other twice, actually only once. So my freshman year, Monday of week 1 for game week, I got some MRI results back. I had a benign tumor grow in my left femur. It had fractured my leg. So I was out for the season. So I was kind of bummed I didn't get to compete against Thomas freshman year, and he torched us. They beat us in the star game. So for context, in sprint football, the star game is the one that the rivalry, counter goes towards for every sport. You play that in the regular season, and then typically they win the North, we win the South, and we face each other again in the championship. So star game, Indianapolis, Thomas torches our defense. They get the win 17-14. All right, for the next 6 weeks of the season, every practice, you got dedicated beat Army time, and we had dedicated stop Thomas Williamson time. So come championship week, things rolled our way. We ended up getting the win 24-10. And, Thomas still got his catches, still got his yards, but we, for the most part, contained him and took the win. My sophomore year, we played up at West Point, and that's when we beat them 14-7. That's when I got to be on the field going against Thomas. That was super cool. Both of our families came up for that game. We got featured in the Cistercian Alumni Magazine, picture of us on the field together afterwards. Yeah, talking about full circle, I played on the field with Thomas my sophomore year, his senior year, and then come to sophomore year, my college, his senior year, we're playing against each other at two really, really awesome institutions playing the game we loved. A ton of fun. I'm sure he remembers it fondly. I remember it very fondly as well.
And even better than all of that, you were cemented forever, your legacy in the continuum.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Does
Hang
not
the
get much
banner.
better than that. Um, they might have even, put an Informer article in there that you're not aware of yet. That would have been pretty cool too, being the little newspaper they give out. Um,
If that
so
happened, I am currently unaware.
yeah, I don't know if it happened or not. I never really I was on the staff and I never even paid attention to it myself. So it was
Yeah,
but the continuum, man, that's pretty big time right there.
it was cool.
So
It was super cool.
um yeah, and that's always awesome to get to go up against former high school teammates at the next level. Y'all were teammates at one point, now you're rivals. Do you think that first game your freshman year, if you had been healthy, I mean, you were a linebacker, but you played safety in high school. If you matched up one on one with him, do you think you would have contained him a little more than what happened?
Yeah, I think so. I came in and we ran a 3-4. So I played safety my freshman and sophomore year. And then we transitioned to a 4-2-5 kind of towards the end of sophomore year, going into my junior and senior year. So I played that outside safety position. If I got matched up on Thomas, I think if they threw 10 balls his way, like he maybe brings in five, but I'm picking off a couple and I'm breaking up the other ones. But he's not going to get it. He's not getting any touchdowns. I'll tell you that much. Uh, he was a great competitor. Like I said, it would have been awesome to see one of my very best friends, Adam Weisenfels. He was league MVP our senior year. He was the cornerback who we singled up on Thomas one-on-one. And, Adam started all 4 years starting as a freshman, and he was the guy we put on Thomas, in that championship game that helped contain him. So, you know, like I said earlier, the dudes on both sides are similar athletes, and the competitive nature really comes out. And, those 50-50 balls really are 50-50. And, I was fortunate that towards the end of my career, the 50-50 balls went our way, not their way. But it's an awesome thing to be a part of, but definitely would have locked down Thomas.
Right, that's what we like to hear right there, and that's that competitive nature that's within you, obviously, as a football player, and then I'm sure, in training and in the Navy Academy, sure there's a lot of competitiveness going on there. And how was that balancing, the life of a cadet, the life of being enrolled in the Naval Academy, and also playing a college football, like college football. You were doing
Mm-hmm.
two full-time jobs at the same time. Because I'm doing right now is just playing football. And that's busy enough as it is. I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine what it was like balancing being a cadet as well as being a football player. How did you manage to do that for 4 years?
Yeah. So, you know, being in the military at the Naval Academy, I think the biggest transition that would shock most people from the outside looking in is just how little of your time you get to dictate. And I'm sure you feel it, college athletics, your free time towards lifts, towards film study, towards practice, all that stuff. Um, I I would say sprint football provided like more structure, which allowed me to focus myself even better in the times that I had, for the homework and the studying and the midshipman development. But I would say the lessons I learned in leadership and in competition, I got most significantly from the football field. And the strongest bonds that I formed with people came through that shared misery towards a common goal. And especially, I think sprint football provides the opportunity for an increased level of that shared misery, given the fact that, guys are skipping meals and not drinking water just so that they can step on the scale and weigh in at the required weight. So that requires a different level of dedication to the sport. And it requires a different level of focus. Those Monday and Tuesday practices, when we still have weigh-ins looming Wednesday, it's different. I mean, the heat of battle, we had fights in practice probably every day because you got dudes who are hungry and thirsty and who are giving this thing their all, going head to head. And, practices were harder than most of our games. You got 65 guys. Every single one of them wants to be one of the 22 on the field at any given time. But at the end of the day, there's only 22 spots. So it provided another avenue to focus myself. It provided the opportunities to succeed and to fail and to, only depend on my own level of preparation and dedication for that, which is something that translates very well to anybody's life. Feeling comfortable, getting outside of your comfort zone and pushing yourself beyond what you think you can do, and then seeing 64 other guys doing it right next to you, it builds a unbreakable bond in everybody's hearts and everybody's minds. And like I said, the sorrows of defeat and the triumph of victory, you don't forget either of those feelings. And we were fortunate. So cool thing, the sprint football head coaching position is a major in the Marine Corps' billeted position. So every 3 years we get a new head coach, and that's what their job in the Marine Corps for those 3 years is to coach Navy sprint football.
Yeah.
So Major Jason Dewald and Major Alfonso Matus were my coaches while I was there. And so we're getting daily development towards our eventual profession from those guys. And these are guys that have been in combat and that have seen, excuse my language, but real world shit that they've been through and that they've had to prepare for and overcome. And you put that, against a game, and we prepared ourselves as if we were going to battle, as if we were going to war. And I think it showed in the tenacity that we played with, the toughness that everybody on the team had, and, obviously the success that we enjoyed. So it was really nothing but a benefit for me. I would sacrifice all over again. I would sacrifice the meals. I would sacrifice the water. I would sacrifice the free time just to go back and do it again. Because those are, the best 4 years of my life so far. And sprint football is the top of all those great memories.
And that just opens my eyes to a whole newfound respect for sprint football. Because obviously, like you got the guys out playing on Saturday, they don't have to weigh in twice a week. So I'm sure the missed meals and the fasting to make the weigh-in made training just all the more difficult as you're fatigued, you're hungry, you're cranky, hangry, as some may say. I mean, that's incredible. To do that for 4 straight years is just phenomenal. Like that's
Yeah. So it's funny because as a new coach rolls in, so Major Matus, my coach for my senior year, he had played sprint football when he was at the Naval Academy, so he got it. He'd been around the program. But for the coaches that are coming in from different positions, maybe haven't seen sprint football before, they haven't seen a practice where everybody on the field is, like you said, hungry and cranky and thirsty. And understandably so, that you can get a different level of athletic performance out of somebody when they are well nourished and well hydrated than you can when they're hungry and thirsty.
right.
So like I said, those Monday, Tuesday practices, you got guys starving, wearing full sweats underneath their pads, and they're not going to move as quick as a guy who doesn't need to worry about his weight. So their confusion those first few days, why are things not clicking the way they're supposed to? And they get a couple weeks into the season and they see, okay, like Wednesday when they come out and they've eaten their full meals and they have water, it's a different game. So that's where that mental preparation comes in. Every week we're preparing mentally to overcome whatever physical limitations we're dealing with early in the week. And then, come Friday, come Saturday, whichever one it was, we're firing all cylinders. We had that team meal the night before where you share in the fellowship and you make the memories, and you go out and you get to compete together. So, it's a different level of dedication to the sport than what is required of any other sport, any other team. Compared to wrestling, a lot same situation. Guys got to sacrifice what they need to sacrifice in order to make weight. But that only elevated, the bond that we formed on the sprint team.
Well, that's an incredible story and an incredible thing to share. I mean, it newfound respect, like I said earlier, that is remarkable to do that for 4 straight years. And sounds like you had, even through all the struggle, a lot of fun doing it and wouldn't trade it for the world. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
always awesome to hear. And that's about all I got for you, man. But as always, go Navy, beat Army.
that's right.
Are you going to be in attendance in 2 weeks?
Unfortunately not. I'm West Coast right now, and it's up in
Oh
Foxborough.
yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the owner of the Patriots was just saying today, like the ticket demand has been more than any AFC Championship game hosted, any Taylor Swift concert.
Wow.
Um, dude, like if I can leave with one thing, I'll just say the if anybody in America is ever formed a bucket list, they need to put an Army Navy game on the bucket list. There is nothing like it. The CBS intro video every year. I'm not afraid to admit that maybe my eyes have gotten a little wet a few times watching those. Um, the connectedness to the players that you feel, um, and just the passion that exudes from all 8,000 midshipmen and cadets in attendance, not to mention the 100,000 people they're watching. It's truly remarkable. And if anybody ever has an opportunity to go, they need to. Super awesome thing, an amazing thing to be a part of. Feel super fortunate that I got to compete against those guys and got to enjoy some success. Um, but hey, man, I appreciate you having me on. I hope this gave you a little bit of insight into the Army Navy rivalry, helped you learn a little bit more about sprint football. We're always trying to get it out on the map a little bit more because it truly is an awesome game.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Obviously, you're incredibly busy. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for your service to the United States. And go Hawks, man.
It's my pleasure. Go Hawks, beat Army.
You have a good one, Mike.
All right, let it go.